Well, good morning. It's wonderful to be back in Palm Beach County. We got a great announcement here today. I want to thank all of you for coming. Our government here in the United States and in the state of Florida is supposed to be what's called a government of laws, not a government of men. And what the Founding Fathers meant by that is it's not one individual that gets to impose a will outside the context of a constitutional system, but that the best way to preserve our freedoms is to have a society based on the rule of law. And what we've seen in our country over many, many decades is judges that have taken power away from people's elected representatives, and they have legislated from the bench. And that's not their role. Their role is to apply the law and Constitution as it's written. Well, I deal with the legislature. We have a good relationship, but you know, the legislatures don't always do great laws. Sometimes they do things that don't work out as a matter of policy. But that's not the judge's job to sit there as a council of revision and change the law. It's the people's job to elect people to change it as they see fit. And so it's really important that courts are discharging the duties that they have under the Constitution within the confines of those limitations. And I can tell you that it's critical that you do have an independent judiciary that can decide cases and controversies. And there are times when things come before a court and somebody's been aggrieved, and that court's got to render a judgment that that law at issue may violate the Constitution. And there's nothing wrong with that. And indeed, that makes the system stronger. But when you take off that judicial robe and then you act like a quasi-politician, you're not accountable the same way that an elected official is, and it really distorts the constitutional system. We really see the same thing in a different vein happening all over the country with some of these rogue prosecutors that basically say they are not going to enforce certain laws that they don't like, that they put their personal conception of, quote, social justice over what the law and their constitutional oath require. And in the state of Florida, we did a review to make sure that folks here who are charged with being the elected prosecutors were doing their job. And we had evidence that you had a fellow over in Tampa that had basically said there's certain things he's just not going to enforce. There's going to be certain policies they're going to do where people are presumptively let off the hook, even though the law requires. So we did something about that, and we made sure that we're enforcing the rule of law. When you depart from the rule of law, like we've seen with a lot of these prosecutors, like look at San Francisco. You know, the wealthy people still voted to keep that prosecutor in. Why? Because all the chaos that was unleashed by the insane policies, those were falling on the shoulders of working class communities. They were falling on the shoulders of communities that couldn't necessarily retreat behind gates and private protection. And so when you have the rule of law, the people that benefits the most are those that may not have power on their own, that may not have big institutions lined up behind them. And so when you look at judges and you look at people that are going to be on these courts, it's very important that they're able to discern rule of law from legislative will. And when you're applying that rule of law faithfully, it makes our freedom stronger, it makes our community stronger, and it makes our state thrive. So we had a duty to go for another Supreme Court appointment here in the state of Florida with the news of the retirement of Justice Lawson, and I want to commend him for doing an outstanding job for the people of Florida. He served with distinction, and I wish him well in his future endeavors. So we had a list of great candidates, and many of you know that 2 years ago, we had a list of great candidates to fill 2 spots, and we were able to put from Miami John Coryell on the bench, who's done a great job. We also initially nominated Judge Renatha Francis, and we were planning on doing it. Obviously, she had to reach a certain time in September of 2020 before she had enough bar experience constitutionally to take office. And part of the reason she was just coming up on 10 years, she's had other careers before she got into law. And so I actually thought that was a good thing, to take someone that came from different backgrounds rather than someone that was born into like a legal family. So she was somebody that was born in Jamaica, immigrated from Jamaica, and then really took on law as kind of her second career and has excelled very well. Well, we actually had someone file a lawsuit to try to keep her off the court because they said she can't be appointed until she reaches the 10-year mark. And look, it was a disputed point of law. The Judicial Nominating Commission thought it was fine to nominate and take office at 10 years. I thought it was fine to appoint and have that appointment be effective at 10 years. Florida Supreme Court disagreed. They said once you're selected off the list, it's that instant where you have to have had 10 years. Therefore, the appointment was defective. And so I thought it was disappointing. It was disappointing for Judge Francis to have to go through all that and then have this lawsuit come at the 11th hour just because someone didn't want her on the court. I mean, it was all politics. It wasn't anything that was based in principle. So she handled it well. So we have this other appointment. But I said, and she was on the list, I said, you know what? She got it 2 years ago, but 2 years have elapsed, and I've got to go and do a thorough review of everybody because there may have been people 2 years ago that have progressed a lot. And so it wasn't anything that she was entitled to just because she got it 2 years ago based on the facts and circumstances at the time. So, we ran all the nominees through a very good process. They had to talk about the law and their philosophy and all these different things. And I said, I'm going to do it from scratch. No preconceived notions, and we're going to go with the person that we think has done the best job. And I will tell you that we were happy to appoint or try to appoint Judge Francis 2 years ago in the state of Florida, but then seeing how she's progressed since then, she's done even better, and she was really good on everything. It's just... She understands what the proper role of the judge is in America's constitutional system. And I also think, being an immigrant, she probably has more appreciation for our constitutional system than many people that can trace their lineage back hundreds of years. So I think sometimes people that are born here take it for granted because they don't have any point of reference to be able to compare a free society in America versus different parts of the world. That's why you see some of the people that have been, really, really strong in the state of Florida for upholding individual freedom and the rule of law have been people whose families escaped from communism in Cuba, places like Nicaragua. You see the disaster in Venezuela. Unfortunately, Colombia is now going in a bad direction. And so I think the fact that she came from Jamaica, she thought it was a gift to be able to be in the United States, never took anything for granted, had really long odds to be able to succeed, just given her circumstances, to succeed in the law. But yet this was something that she really, really excelled at, I think, from the very beginning when she started her legal career. And she's been a great judge, not just in Miami-Dade County, but also here in Palm Beach County. And so, that is the type of story, I think, that should give a lot of people in the state of Florida inspiration. Because in this state, you can do great things. You can realize great dreams if you put your mind to it, if you work hard, and if you believe in the principles that make our country what it is and what we're trying to continue it to be here in our state. And so I think she'll be emblematic of that. I think she'll be a source of inspiration for a lot of folks out there who are younger, who are studying, and who are thinking like, what can I do with my life? Is that something that I could potentially do? And I think she's showing that, yeah, that's something that you can potentially do. And that's really something that we've worked really hard to be able to create here in the state of Florida. And we've had people flooding into the state, leaving some of these other areas that have gone in much different directions in terms of how they've approached individual freedom. I can tell you, I haven't met very many people who regret coming to the state of Florida over the last few years. They're happy to be here. They're happy that we've stood for people's jobs, freedom, education, keeping businesses afloat, all the important things where we did a different path from some of the others. But I tell you, when you go through something like that, if we were sitting here 4 years ago and I told you that there were going to be some states in our country that were going to forcibly shutter churches, while having liquor stores and strip clubs open, you guys would have all said, oh, DeSantis is just, he's just piping off. That's not true. And in reality, we saw that happen. We saw people's fundamental freedoms be violated by rogue mayors and governors all throughout the country to the detriment, I think, of their societies. And a lot of those places have never recovered from that. So don't act like freedom is something just our birthright. It is not passed along in the bloodstream. It's something that we as free people have to cultivate, and that means having strong institutions, and it means having a strong constitutional system. So I believe this appointment of Judge Francis is one that will really reinvigorate and fortify our judiciary in a very positive way, but also send a great message that you can realize your dreams. People come from all walks of life, and it's really about the content of your character, your willingness to work hard, your willingness not to be denied and take no for an answer. There's always going to be people that tell you you can't do this or you can't do that. Well, I think Judge Francis is proof that you can start off with long odds and you can still do great things. So I'm happy to be able to be here in West Palm Beach, to be able to make the appointment, which will be effective at the beginning of September, for our next Justice of the Florida Supreme Court, Judge Renatha Francis.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Governor. I'm incredibly honored and humbled by this appointment to continue my service to the people of our great state of Florida. I know I've said this before on prior occasions, but I have to say it again. I stand before you, the epitome of the American dream. My beginnings are humble. I grew up in the small island of Jamaica to a mom who never finished high school and who herself was the daughter of a small farmer. What my mom lacked in financial resources, she made up for in grit, determination, faith, and hard work. And those values, inculcated early and often in her children, were reflected in me as a small business owner, which I did while attending college full-time, eventually graduating with high honors and being a surrogate parent to a much younger sibling. As a student of history growing up, I was and I remain in awe of the United States, its Constitution, its freedoms, its respect for the rule of law. And so, like many generations before me and since, I set out to find my place in this shining city on the hill. And when I embarked upon my career in the law, never did I imagine that it would bring me here, standing in front of you, being here today. So I'm not only grateful, I'm humbled that I get to be a part of this great American experiment and to serve at the highest level of our state judiciary. The Florida Supreme Court protects the people's liberty, and inherent in the way that we do that as a judiciary is by respecting and observing the limited role that judges play in our constitutional system of government. Alexander Hamilton explained what that meant, that we exercise neither force nor will, but merely judgment. We apply the law as written. This timeless principle in a civil society not only promotes uniformity, predictability, it's essential to preserving liberty. It restrains arbitrariness. It restrains abuses of power. If history teaches us anything, it's that as simple and enduring as this principle is, it's evaded the vast majority of human history until this American experiment. I want to close by thanking some very, very important people in my life, without whom none of this would have been possible. I won't risk rattling off names lest I forget somebody, but you know who you are. To my mentors, my colleagues, you've supported me tirelessly, you've guided me, you've encouraged me. In this process, you've amazed me with your generosity, your dedication, and your kindness. To the men and women of the Florida Supreme Court J&C, thank you for all the hard work you do in this very important role, all while juggling very demanding personal and professional commitments. Thank you to the former governor, now Senator Rick Scott, who first appointed me to the county court bench over 5 years ago. Without that confidence in me, I would not be standing here today. And thank you to my friends and supporters for your calls, your texts, your emails, your love, your encouragement. It's meant so much to me, more than I can express. And finally, I want to say a special thank you to my family. And now I'm going to try to keep it together. To my family, Mom, for your love. Your support, and all the sacrifices you made to make sure I had what I needed, even when it wasn't everything that I wanted. I love you. To my husband, thank you for your unwavering support and your belief in me. You are a true partner in every sense of the word, and I cannot imagine doing any of this without you by my side. Most of all, thank you for these two rambunctious and precious boys. Josh, you are so kind, so thoughtful, and you take such great care of your baby. Matt, you have grown up so much. Hang on, Mommy's almost done. And I love the way that you love your big brother, especially when you two are not fighting. I can't wait to see all the amazing things that both of you do in this life. And to Governor DeSantis, thank you again. Thank you again for this great honor and this opportunity to continue serving our great state. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks, guys.